Welcome back. Over the past few weeks, the United Kingdom has been struck with a series of deadly terrorist attacks. Colin, what can you tell us about these attacks, and why do you think the UK has been such a hot target?
Well, I don't necessarily think the UK particularly has been a hot target. We had the attack in France, several attacks in France and all over Western Europe. I think there's a couple of different reasons that they're seeing more of the attacks over there than they are over here. The first and most logical is proximity.
Okay.
And the fact that the EU has open borders, so once somebody gets into Greece or Italy, then they have free access to the rest of the continent. Now, there is a bigger issue here, and we are looking at this radicalization process has been occurring in the Middle East itself ever since the late 70s. I don't buy the argument that the Palestinian side of things and the Shia side of things tie into the same things, because they don't. The Sunni radicalism, which is what all the terrorism now is really based on, started with the war in Afghanistan, the Soviet invasion, and then the aftermath of that during the 80s, and it's reached a crescendo. You know, the funny thing is, and I was talking to my son about this, and he was saying that, look, you know, even the Taliban don't randomly kill women and children. It's you saw it with al-Zarqawi, the Al-Qaeda in Iraq guy, during the 2000s, where they were just became much bloodier than any of these other terrorist groups. And it's leading to radicalizing people in the West, and you have oftentimes, and I think the reason this happens in Western Europe is because you have a marginalized section of society. They don't necessarily have access to jobs, they have poor living conditions, they're literally being marginalized by the society at large, and they become very angry, and the way that they let loose this anger is by becoming radicalized.
Right.
The other problem really, and I think this is very endemic, is you have a society that is not taking responsibility for the clerics that are spreading these ideas. And I think the real solution to that ultimately is going to be self-policing.
Within the Muslim community?
Yes.
All over the world?
There has to be a realization that they have to take responsibility, because it is coming from their community.
Yeah. Well, I think the president did address that in Saudi Arabia when he spoke to in Saudi Arabia. And
he spoke to one of the biggest sponsors of Sunni terrorism.
Well, but that's just part of the hypocrisy that we're living in right now. All over, with religion, with politics, and everything is hypocrisy. You can't put hypocrisy blamed on one sector when it's everywhere. So how do they do it? I mean, they were. You know what's really funny? Here you have Saudi Arabia. You have the sixth country that the ban or whatever it was called for the 6 different countries.
Right.
Saudi Arabia had how many?
Travel pause.
How many? Okay, travel pause. How many people from Saudi Arabia was part of the 9/11?
All of them, or most of them.
But 15, 16 people, 17. And they're not even on the list. And we go and we're friends with them. I don't understand that. So how are those Muslims going to, and we sell them arms. You know, we sell them arms so they can arm themselves to go into Yemen or wherever to shoot people. The biggest problem you had in the UK was what? They didn't have weapons.
Right.
So they had to use knives.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, though, I actually heard that some of the UK's police, and I don't know if this is true or not, but this is what I was reading on social media, some of the UK's police had to run away from the knife-wielding attackers because they were unarmed.
No, they actually, quite the opposite from what I've heard, is that they ran towards it, and the police responded very quickly.
8 minutes. In 8 minutes, they were all dead.
Yeah, and I was there last summer on London Bridge in that area. It's very crowded where it ended, and unfortunately, you couldn't stop this type of attack anywhere. These were 3 guys with knives who rented a work van and taped or made fake suicide vests. And that probably was one reason why everybody was holding back from them. But the response was very fast because they were able to get armed police in there and take them out very quickly.
Do you think that what Theresa May said about basically society being too tolerant and creating too many safe spaces for extremism to flourish, do you think that that's true? Do you think that that's one of the reasons why this is, that was a pretty bold statement.
The question becomes, in a world where you want to guarantee civil liberties, how exactly do you stop that?
Right. Well, her suggestion, of course, was to police the internet, which I'm sure that you're not in favor of.
That's a
Ken.
terrifying.
Ken
idea.
gets all fired up when we talk about that.
It
really
doesn't.
is.
It also is not going to work very well.
No.
Well, yeah.
Because all they
But-
got to do is just go to the deep web and
And then if
problem
they're
solved.
even more difficult
Okay,
to
okay,
find.
go to the deep web. I like Mary's idea. I think there's far more that can be done with terrorists searching different businesses to put together the paraphernalia. You can go in minutes after a bomb attack, collect data, and know who made the bomb.
Right.
Now, if they know that, they ought to be able to know the materials used, who sells it.
Right, but if the if
They're
the
doing this with
people are
kitchen
dead,
knives.
then,
Right.
right,
Well,
and-
but-
or if the people are dead, then you can't question them and interrogate
Yeah,
them.
but
How do
they-
you
they-
even know? I mean,
No, you missed my point.
You look at the material.
You
Well,
look at the materials,
Yeah.
you know who
but
built
that's
it.
not
then-
always. You can't always.
Well, but they know pretty quickly. So
Right.
where did they get the materials they used to bomb? Where did they get the canisters? Where
But then
did
is
they
it
get those things?
suddenly like the fault of the Walmart clerk that they sold so and so this
Well, and I
tape
think-
and I mean it's like
Well,
where who
And to Mary's
not
point,
fair.
to Mary's point, where did Timothy McVeigh get everything that they used
Right.
to make the bombs? At a farm supply
Yeah,
store.
farm supply store.
I mean, I think people should certainly be more vigilant and look for warning signs, I guess, but I don't think that everyone should be so paranoid, if someone's buying, I mean, when Maryland started to crack down
Well-
on gun control, it was sort of like when people were to, everyone went out and bought ammunition because they were afraid that people, Maryland lawmakers were going
And-
to take their
and
guns,
funny-
and then it's like,
yeah.
I mean,
And then
you know
I
what
couldn't
mean?
find hunting ammunition
Right.
for 3 months.
Right.
Exactly.
And she talks.
Couldn't even find 22
Hey, and
ammunition.
she talks about guns. You talked about the 7 people killed over in the UK. How
And
many
they're-
people was killed in Florida by guns the next day?
right.
Right.
Here, that we never even talked about. Did those families get a call from the president, about how terrible it was? I don't know.
It's hard to keep up.
So-
I mean, it happens like
Yeah,
every
but,
other
but
day.
here's our own country using guns to kill somebody the next day, and all the comments are on the terrorist attacks in the UK. How about the attacks here?
Well, that was
how
like-
about the people we
that
get
was-
killed?
Supposedly because the guy got fired, and that was a
Well,
different.
but
You know,
workplace
this is
violence.
terrorism. Workplace violence.
Do we
right.
know now when we fire somebody? If you fire somebody tomorrow, you're not going to turn your back on that person, are you?
No, but luckily they
That's-
mostly live in other states, so it's okay.
Yeah, well, and that's a real issue that employers do have to face. Is we'll actually post at the Engine Star building sometimes. Hey, this person has been terminated. Under no circumstances, let them in the building.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real issue they have to face. So, and
That's
it's
with
very
anybody,
unfortunate.
because there are a lot of unstable people in the world. So
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Colin. And unfortunately, you have the last word on that.